presenting ourselves anti-tobacco, so anti-tobacco tayo. But we cannot present ourselves as anti-tobacco kung pro-tobacco tayo. Unang gago kasi dito is the last Congress. For kaya ako nilapit sa akin yung batas na yon. No way. No? So when we're talking about tobacco, okay lang if I suddenly ask you about measles, about mumps, pero tatanungin ko kayo about tobacco, hindi nyo alam on your fingertips magkano ang ginagastos ng gobyerno on tobacco-related disease. No wonder this delegation is taking the balanced approach. So how much are we spending?
Yes, Madam Chair. So 4.8% of our GDP is the amount used for current NCD burden. We'd like to point out again po that.
So what's that in peso amount, ma'am? Yeah, that's the burden. I'm asking how much is the government spending? Ano na yan? PhilHealth, DOH, AIX, MAIP. Dapat meron kayo niyan. Actually, ginugol ko lang, meron na eh.
To 300. Madam Chair, it's roughly 300 million.
Oh, wow. Kasi in 2016, it was 44.6 billion eh.
Billion, I'm
So
sorry.
it went down to...
Billion.
Oh, so it's 300 billion now.
Yes.
Okay. If we stop smoking and give that amount to the farmers, how much will the farmers get? Di ba we have 30,000 farmers, right? Sorry? 20,000 families. Okay. Kasi 20,000 families, if you give them 10,000, that's 20 million? 200 million. 200 million times 36 months, times 12 months, that's only 2.4 billion. You're spending 300 billion in amount and you have about 250 billion in your budget for ayuda. So if we're going to have a 5-year plan to help the farmers plant something else, ang dami-dami pong technology, Thailand, Vietnam, Israel, we have the money to support the farmers. That's at 10,000. How much is the average income? Anyone can, Deputy Secretary, yes, Senior Deputy Executive Secretary, anyone from agriculture, how much is the, making the ordinary tobacco farmer?
It's earning 100,000 per hectare po.
Oh, and how is the average hectare per farmer? Don't tell me you don't have that data on hand. Guys, why do you come to the hearing not prepared? Di naman tayo grade school, di ba?
Mga, on the average po, mga half hectare po per
Mga?
half hectare po.
Oh, so 50,000 a year. So that's less than 5,000 a month. So if you give them 10,000, we're only going to spend 3 billion. How much is the tobacco industry in the Philippines? DOH. O DTI. NTA. Guys, sanay ako tinatawag ng teacher at hindi ako makasagot ha. So, pero Senate hearing to at alam niyo naman yung privilege speech. So I expect you to have the data on hand. Is dealt with the garden variety of corruption. Diba? Yung either BIR or customs na may lagayan or whether it's a contract na may share ka or may lagayan. But we really haven't discussed regulatory capture that much in our government and society. And to be fair to this administration, I'm talking about all administrations. The problem for me is when we present ourselves as anti-tobacco but we're pro-tobacco. Okay lang kasi sa akin na we're presenting ourselves anti-tobacco, so anti-tobacco tayo. But we cannot present ourselves as anti-tobacco kung pro-tobacco tayo. So which goes to my second point na walang such thing as balance. Diba? But would like to discuss regulatory capture. What is regulatory capture? Senior Deputy Executive Secretary, but may mga kasama din kasi kayo talaga sa COP na known na advocates of the tobacco industry. So syempre, if it walks like a duck, smells like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Di ba? So dun pa lang kasi sa COP, ano yun eh? Law din yun eh. It's a treaty, di ba? So how can we keep saying that we're talking about RA 11900? We're not only talking about RA 9100, we're talking about three laws here, the Philippine Constitution. So since we're both lawyers naman, there's a provision on health in the Constitution, right? In the general principles. Tama ba? Yeah. So the Senior Deputy Secretary is nodding. Is there any provision on tobacco in the Constitution? Wala, no? But of course, commerce, agriculture, meron. To be fair, di ba? Okay. Then we are signatory to a treaty. And under the law, the Constitution, if you sign a treaty and the Senate ratifies, it becomes part of our law. Hindi po ba? No. So, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but yung unang gago kasi dito is the last Congress for passing this law. Okay? So, I'm saying it not as a mura, but as a description of how Congress was also part of the regulatory capture. Nung speaker ako, nilapit sa akin yung batas na yon. No way. No way. Okay? Paano pinasa tong batas na to, Deputy? Are you familiar? No. Can you use the mic, sir?
No, I'm not familiar with
Sige.
Mr. Chair.
Is anyone familiar here? Except for the advocates, I know you're all familiar. While I'm looking for the timeline, last December 2021, nag-number 1 ako for senatorial candidate in Pulse Asia. Sinabihan na ako, tigilan mo na magsalita sa isabong and stop talking about the vape law because those two have so much money, you're going to lose so many votes. Yun So, pataas ng pataas. I was always number 2 or 3, but for 1 month, I was number 1. I finished number 7. I don't blame anyone. May iba pang reasons, times, but that's how powerful this lobby is. Na pag tinarget ka talaga sa mga distrito, may pera talaga sila. At the time, may isabong pa. I'm glad I did not stop because natigil yung isabong. Unfortunately, nautakan tayo sa vape. Okay, so they could not file it during my time as speaker. So they had the first reading in March 17, 2021. Second reading in May 19, 2021. Third reading on May 25, 2021. So kita niyo kung gaano ka-urgent tong bill na to. No? Within March, April, May, within 3 months, this very, very urgent vape bill was passed. Okay. Yeah, March, April, May. Sinama ko na, liberal na ako doon. Okay. So the Senate approved the disagreeing provisions on January 25, 2022. I guess what people don't know, I have this on first-hand information, meaning yung nagkwento sa akin was there. The tobacco magnates of this country went to see President Duterte. One of them was so frail, they even have to carry him in. And as soon as they sat down, sabi ni President Duterte, kita niyo kamay ko? Nanginginig dahil sa smoking. I forgot what he calls that disease. Can you say that on the mic, ma'am?
Burgers disease.
And that's not from eating too many burgers, di ba? That's from, galing saan yun, ma'am? So smoking was contributory there or main?
Smoking is the primary.
Smoking is okay. So tinanong ko na doon, so ano nangyari? So umuwi sila lahat, ni hindi sila naka-first base kay President Duterte. Anong problema po? Binulsa po yung law. Stinap doon. And waited for the next administration. And then they allowed it to lapse into law on July 25, 2022. Would the Senior Deputy ES know how many agencies recommended veto?
I'm not aware of that, Madam Chair, because at that point in
At that
time,
time, you were 25 days there.
no, not even that. I was appointed first as Assistant Presidential Legal Counsel
Yes.
in August 2022, and then as Senior Deputy Executive Secretary.
And even if you were ES, you would probably have
a ton of documents.
ton of
Because it's
documents,
a transition.
etc. And to be fair to the present ES, it was the former ES at this time, di ba? Yeah, it was former ES Rodriguez. So,
Yes, sir.
I mean, I would expect them to answer and see the first page, but to read everything, no? So, can I go back to DOH, ma'am? What was the recommendation of DOH when this bill was passed?
Yes, Madam Chair, the DOH registered the veto to the Office of the President.
Yes. Okay. So, according to, just to show you how kalokohan tong law na to that we're saying we're trying to balance. According to the advocates, the vape is more healthy than cigarettes. So, tama po ba ako, ma'am, na we were correcting them, sandali lang, hindi healthy yung cigarette, so how can it be more healthy? So, binaliktad nila. It is less unhealthy than cigarettes. Okay. Which, if you again Google the strategies on tactics of the tobacco companies, which is important because that's the reason why we got the Ashtray Award for falling hook, line, and sinker into the tactics ng tobacco industry. Ang tobacco industry, sinasabi nila harm reduction to. But there's no proof of that. Okay, so what's the next thing they said? They said, well, since it's less unhealthy, targetin natin ang smokers to shift. But this is my question. Why did they lower the age na pwedeng bumili from 21 to 18? So dati, bawal ang hanggang 21, 21 lang pwedeng bumili. So meaning, theoretically, dapat hindi nagsusmoke, hindi nagve-vape, yung 18, 19, 20. So nung binabaan natin, paano nangyaring eto less unhealthy? Hindi. The reality is we're trying to mold their taste because the tobacco companies, after decades and century of fooling people, of multi-billion-dollar lawsuits of keeping health data from people, is on the decline. And they're looking where to shift. Diba? So in the same manner that oil companies realize that younger people now want the environment to be preserved for future generations, some of them are going into renewables or to cleaner. So ibig sabihin, billion-billion company yun, so hindi basta magsasara. But ang linaw naman na mas maayos yung solar, yung wind, etc. sa oil, and wala naman nagdududa that we needed oil or fossil fuel during that time. But yung smoking, di ba? I mean, they can go into real estate, they can go into malls, they can go into health products, but they choose to shift to vape, but they're doing the same tactics. So what's my point in all of this? I understand you, sir, as a lawyer, as the head of delegation in saying, try niyong i-balance. But I'm trying to give you the kabilang perspective. If you go to COP, for example, in the environment, you're either pro or anti-fossil fuels. Diba? If you go to a health conference, let's say on opioids, on the pandemic or the, what do you call it, epidemic or pandemic of opioids in the US, you go into the conference, you're either pro or anti. So I hear you, and lahat naman tayo naging kahit paano sa delegation, Yusek Charles, diba? Napakahirap talagang pumasok sa isang conference na maghanap ng consensus. But the reality is, you either go in that the experts know that you are for or against. And the reality is the Philippines at this point in time, both with the law and with the representations made, is pro-tobacco.